Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining today's office hour. I'm excited to have you here for the Marketplace Community Office Hour for partners and channel partners. Today, we have a session on Marketplace rewards, and so we'll go ahead and get started in just a minute. But before we do that, just want to welcome everybody to the office hour session. This is a new format for us being in the Marketplace community for this monthly office hour. So we're super excited to have you here. And I'm joined today by a few of my colleagues on the Marketplace team. So we'll get started in just a second. I'm Justin Royal. I'm the community lead for the Marketplace, and just wanted to encourage you to ask all your questions about the content in today's session. If you are watching this outside of today's session, definitely feel free to post your questions in the Marketplace community. And if you're not a member of the community already, please join so you can stay updated for more information about this session as well as future office hours. So with that being said, I will go ahead and introduce our speakers. Today we have my colleagues Jason Rook, Jesse, and Joel are here with us today. So Jason, why don't you kick us off and just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your role and about today's topic before we get started.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. So yeah, I'm Jason Rook. I'm a senior director here in Marketplace Product Marketing, and I look after our features to help channel partners sell software development company, SDC apps through our marketplace, primarily using multi-party private offers. And today we're going to talk about marketplace rewards for FY26. And I know many of you on the call or the recording have participated in the Marketplace Rewards for Channel Partners pilot. We are now generally available and live. And so today's conversation is going to be all about what's in the program and what's new and how to kind of execute going forward. I actually have Jesse Vidal and Joe Miranda here today. Many of you know them because they helped you onboard into multi-party private offers. They're the folks behind Channel Ready. So whenever you go to channelready@microsoft.com, for any of your NPO related questions, it's Jesse and Joel that are fielding most of those questions and getting them triaged to the right place. So with that, let's go ahead and Justin, if it's okay with you, let's just dive into the content here.
Yeah, let's get started. And again, definitely feel free to ask your questions in the chat. We will have time at the end of today's session for Q&A.
Excellent. Yeah, so today is all about Marketplace Rewards. We're going to talk about the program for those of you that are new. We'll kind of give you the high level. For those of you that have been participating throughout the pilot for the last year, I'll give you a little bit of what's changed. Spoiler, not much. Then we'll definitely do open Q&A. So make sure you get any questions you might have into that questions window, and we'll go through those at the end for sure. But for those of you that are new to this concept, Marketplace Rewards is actually a benefits package that's been available to software development companies selling through our marketplace for over 4 years now. And it's a program that has evolved very nicely over the last few years. Over the last year, we've conducted what we've called a pilot to allow channel partners to participate in Marketplace Rewards and reap some of those same sales and marketing benefits. This program's open to any Microsoft AI Cloud Partner Program participant who is enrolled in multi-party private offers. So if you've gone through that process with Jesse or Joel or the Channel Ready team, and you're on that MPO eligible list that's out there, gated behind partner.microsoft.com, then you're really already in Marketplace Rewards. If you haven't sold anything yet, you're what we call MPO enrolled. If you've sold 8 million or more, you're what we're calling the $8 million tier, and that is a new concept. So I'll get to that as we go through this. Your performance and the more you get from this program is based on your marketplace build sales through multi-party private offer transactions on your trailing 12 months of sales. So we don't look at like what you did last month or what you've done since MPO launched 2 years ago. We look at the last 12 months, and that's how we judge your performance, trailing 12 months, right? Any questions at any time, feel free to reach out to channelready@microsoft.com, and the team will get you triaged to the right spot. So how do you get involved? I kind of touched on this a little bit, but the key is you got to be a Microsoft partner, and you have to enroll in multi-party private offers. So you have to go through that whole process with if you're in the US, your resale certificate, if you're in the UK, the tax treaty benefits form, and get on that MPO eligible list. Once you're through that process, we put you automatically into Marketplace Rewards. We'll start you at the lowest tier. Many of you start at the lowest tier and get very quickly to the highest tier, but we start you at the MPO enrolled tier, and I'll give you a little bit more detail on what that really means in a moment. And then as you sell more, you earn more benefits. Those benefits are really a handful of things. So at the early end of your journey, we give you some press release support. There's a press release template that we provide that you can use to do a press release. Hey, we are now selling multi-party private offers through the marketplace, or hey, we're now helping customers navigate their marketplace journey. Some of you have used press release report to say, hey, we are a premier reseller of this particular software development company, and we're now selling through the marketplace with them. That press release is a very handy tool to kind of get some visibility on your marketplace business. As you grow, you'll get access to the rewards testimonial and the partner and customer success story. These are really two published documents that you can end up on a Microsoft property. Many of you are familiar with case studies and those types of things. Think about them as similar constructs as that. Some of you interchange these two or merge them together. That's absolutely fine. The next benefit that you get as you grow is access to a Microsoft Seller Webinar. So there's a Seller Webinar that the Marketplace Rewards team conducts every Monday. Typically, it's a lot of software development companies that kind of get their 5 to 10 minutes of fame with our field sales force to kind of tell what their product does and how they drive things like marketplace field sales and Azure consumed revenue and those types of things. But it's an opportunity for you as a channel partner to do the same. We did later in the pilot start to kind of roll this out, this customer propensity scoring, where you can give rewards at Microsoft.com a list of customers, and they'll score them on their aptitude or their possibility for making a marketplace transaction. This is still a benefit that's in public preview, but as you get higher up in the tiers, this is when you can earn. And then the benefit that you get from the very beginning to the very end of the program is Azure sponsorship, which is, think of it as Azure credits that you give to the customer to help win a marketplace deal. So those are the benefits, and here's kind of how you earn those. So as you grow your marketplace business with us, we unlock more of those benefits for you. So when you first start, you get MPO enrolled. You're now on the MPO eligible list, but you haven't sold a deal yet. So you've got 0 marketplace build sales behind you. We put you in the program, and we put you in at that MPO enrolled layer, right? The MPO enrolled tier. At that point, you get $5,000 of Azure sponsorship that you can use to go win a marketplace deal and kind of get that marketplace build sales up. You also, at that stage, or that tier, as we like to call it, get access to the press release. So if you want to do a press release at that point, you can go to rewards@microsoft.com, and they'll help you with that press release template, and it'll include a quote, kind of a boilerplate quote from a Microsoft exec, that type of thing. As you grow, so when you reach $10,000 or $100,000 in marketplace build sales over the last 12 months with us, we add some more sponsorship to your account. So now you go from 5 to 10K of sponsorship, and you get access to that rewards testimonial template that you can use to kind of go talk about how you use marketplace rewards to grow your business. When you hit the $500,000 in marketplace build sales tier, you get access to that success story that I was talking about, but also your sponsorship goes up to $50,000. Kind of the same thing as you go to 1 million in marketplace build sales, your sponsorship increases, it doubles to 100K in sponsorship, and you get access to that seller webinar benefit. And then when you hit $8 million in marketplace build sales, you unlock $200,000 of sponsorship, and we offer up the ability for you to participate in that propensity scoring preview with us. A couple things on this slide, and I'll recap this at the end, but for those of you that have been participating for the last year in the pilot, I think one thing that you will notice here is that the $10 million tier is gone. That's not because people aren't achieving $10 million. We actually have several partners that are above 50 million and above now, but $8 million is the same tier that exists in the software development company flavor of this. So if you think about it, software development company is now what we're calling ISVs. If you think about the ISV tiering that we had, what we've done is we've gotten rid of the $10 million tier to make it look just like the SDC program, which has an $8 million tier, but the sponsorship remains the same. So if you were thinking about, wow, I got to get to 10 million so I can get to 200K in sponsorship, Now you only have to get to 8 million to unlock that 200K in sponsorship. So a little bit of a change here, but not a huge one. Maybe even more beneficial for some of you that are, at like 7 million and you're just about ready to close that next deal, but it's not enough to get you to 10. If it's enough to get you to 8, you'll unlock that $200,000 in sponsorship. Since sponsorship is really kind of the highlight of the program, or it's where most of you will gravitate to, we'll spend a few moments talking about Azure sponsorship. So who can use it and when can you use it? So any of you can use your sponsorship at any time to go close a marketplace deal. It has to be allocated to the customer's Azure subscription. You can't allocate it to your own dev test subscription or that type of thing. And you cannot also submit for sponsorship to give to a software development company. It has to go to that end customer. When it is granted to that end customer, it is 100% discounted on their Azure usage, right? So if you have a big deal and you give a end customer $100,000 in Azure sponsorship, on that tenant, their next $100,000 at retail price that they consume on that subscription will be discounted to zero, right? So they won't pay for the next $100,000. Sponsorship works on enterprise agreements and pay-go. And I'll talk a little bit about MCA, so the Microsoft customer agreement, in a moment, but it works on EA and pay-go today. Sponsorships are below $100,000 have 90 days for the customer to use up that $100,000 in credits, if you will. Sponsorship that you give that's above $100,000, we give the customer 180 days to use up that. So if they don't use, if you give them 100K and 90 days goes by, they, just say it's 4 months down the road and they still haven't gotten to 100K, at that point, they're back to consuming their Azure and those credits have disappeared. So it's important to encourage your customer that, hey, let's execute these credits and let's really get you spinning the Azure meter so that you're using up those credits and you're getting the most value out of them. Another limitation of the credits is they can't be used on subscriptions that have reserved instance or reserved capacity on top of them. And then you also kind of hear sometimes about they can't be used with third-party marketplace purchases. So a customer can't use a sponsorship to go buy the ISV's app. That sponsorship is really allocated towards the Azure consumption that customer is doing. There's some policies around how these grants work, right? So they're only for marketplace, they're only to help you win marketplace deals. They can't be more than 10% of the annual contract value, right? So if you've got $1 million deal, it can't be more than 100K. It can't be like 500K for $1 million deal. It's capped at 10% of the annual contract value. There's a new thing here. So for those of you that have participated in the pilot, this is one of those new items in the program. If you have a deal that's a 1 year or 2 year term, instead of looking at the ACV, what we look at is 3% of the total contract value. We've been doing this with SDCs for the last year. It's made things a little more simple for them. And it's kind of helped our operations team as well. So we've made that change. So just something to be aware of. Again, if you've ever got a question about a sponsorship or a deal that you're trying to work, you can send an email to channelready@microsoft.com and we'll get you routed to the right answer. The other big one, and we did implement this about midway through the pilot, but those sponsorships that are above $35,000. So if you've got a customer and you've got a deal cooking and you want to go offer them 100K, that's above $35,000, and that will require the account team to approve that. So, and I'll talk a little bit here in a moment about account team approval and how to use that to your advantage and not make that a disadvantage in your deals. The process is quick and simple. Really, you fill out the form. You're going to need, where it gets difficult is you're going to have to collect some data from the customer. You fill out the form, you submit the form within 3 to 5 business days. The team will get back to you and let you know if that is approved. Typically, we approve most everything unless there's an issue with like an enrollment ID, or maybe the customer doesn't really have an EA and they gave you a wrong number, that type of thing. But most likely, if you submit and you have all the data correct, you will get your deals approved. I'll go just a little bit more on this, what subscriptions are eligible for this sponsorship. Again, it's EA and pay-go. It can be an existing pay-go or a net new pay-go that you can use. The big kind of note on this slide is that at this time, we still don't have the ability to do Microsoft customer or cloud agreements at scale. We're still in this MCA pilot. I will just tell you, if you've got a deal with a customer who's got an MCA, definitely get that submitted and get that run past the rewards team. We are still letting people into that pilot. At some point, we will freeze it because we always freeze all of our pilots before we go to general availability, which is a good sign, but I don't want that to kind of fall like right in the middle of a deal that you're trying to close. So get those in early as possible. One of the things that gets a little confusing with sponsorship is, hey, I've got so much allocated to me. So maybe I'm in the $100,000 tier and I've got 10K of sponsorship in that tier, but I've got a big deal. I've got a $5 million deal and I need more than 10K to get that thing to go through Marketplace. Those require what we call incremental Azure sponsorship grants. And there's a whole team within the rewards desk here at Microsoft that handles those incremental grants. So if you have a deal like that, don't think, wow, I can't bring this to Marketplace because I only have 10K to use. Get that deal in the system and the team will look at that and grant an incremental grant. The other way to look at incremental grants is many of you have done this is that you're in that what is today the $8 million tier, used to be the $10 million tier, and you've used all of your 200K already, and you think, wow, in the first 4 months of my Microsoft fiscal year, my first 4 months of engaging in this pilot, I burnt through all of my sponsorship. Now I'm kind of done. That is absolutely not the case. You can go, once you burn through your sponsorship, you can go and ask for an incremental grant. Those grants are delivered on a deal-by-deal basis. So that's an important thing to note. You can't use up your whole 200K and then go say, hey, I need 200K more. At that point, once you've used up your 200K, you would go and say, hey, I've got a deal and I need $50,000 of sponsorship. Can you approve this deal? And we would go through what's the ACV, what's the TCV? Is it greater than 35K? You need account team approval, all of those types of things. You can't ask for more than 200K. We cap it at 200K per deal. But don't forget that there's incremental on top of what you already have. I know that was a big kind of back and forth question that we had throughout the pilot. And many people kind of got through their sponsorship and thought, oh, boy, I'm done until Microsoft reloads me. Don't let that stop your sales cycle. Go and get incremental grants. When you do get ready to submit the form, this is kind of a high-level view of what the form. It's a classic Microsoft Office forms you'll go fill out. Here's some of the data that you will need. So you'll need the company name, contact, and the email, the offer name, of course. You'll need, Microsoft Deal ID if available. For channel partners, we don't require that because you don't have deal IDs. You don't need to go submit these things to Partner Center. That's the SDC's job in a marketplace transaction. But you'll need the target close date, the ACV, that type of thing. If it's an enterprise agreement, you'll need the EA number, the EA account ID, which is an email address. You'll need the terms and conditions ID, which is another email address. Sometimes those are the same. Sometimes those are two entirely different people or mailboxes at the customer, so be aware of that. You'll need to know how much sponsorship you're requesting and when you want that sponsorship to start. So maybe you're going to close a deal today on the 31st, into July, great day to close a deal. And you want the sponsorship to start on September 1st. You need to let the team know that when you want that sponsorship to go into place. On the PayGo deals, it's a little easier. You need the subscription ID number, the account ID. You need the amount that you're going to request and the sponsorship start date. Again, you just go fill out the form. If you've got any questions, Channel Ready and the rewards desk will be happy to help answer those. One of the tips that I always say is early in the sales cycle, and this is true of any MPO deal, use the private offer checklist, right? The private offer checklist will tell you a lot about what's going on at that customer. If they're eligible, that's also a place where you'll be able to see, hey, do they have an MCA or is this a CSP customer? It'll tell you, are you going to run into issues because there's no enterprise agreement or PayGo contract in place? So that's just a pro tip. Use the private offer checklist early and often in your deals. Throughout the pilot, we had a handful of common deal scenarios, if you will, that I just want to kind of speak through for a moment. So the first of those is, hey, who's going to use the sponsorship here, right? So I'm in a deal, I'm a channel partner, I'm in a deal with a software development company, and they've been using Marketplace Rewards and sponsorship quite often, and maybe they want to go submit. That's fine. Maybe they don't want to submit. Maybe they say, hey, you're closer to the customer. You're going to be around to help them really understand who is the EA owner and what account IDs do you need, that type of thing. Maybe they want you to submit, so you are kind of doing that work. That's absolutely fine. I will tell you, many of the SDCs that are using Azure sponsorship have gotten really good at it. They built teams around it, so some of them have really refined processes. They may prefer to do it. There are also several, or I should say dozens or hundreds of ISVs that are still kind of new to Marketplace Rewards, and they may be struggling with Azure sponsorship. That's an awesome opportunity for you as a channel partner to kind of zoom in and help with that as well. So it's really up to you and the software development company to determine who's going to go submit for that. The other component, I mentioned this probably 3 or 4 times already, don't forget about incremental grants. We did see that show up throughout the pilot quite often, where channel partner thought, I'm out of sponsorship, I really can't go after this deal, or I can't use sponsorship in this situation. Don't forget about the incremental grants. You can absolutely go ask for an incremental grant to help you win a deal. I will tell you, these software development companies do that all the time. So many of the ones that are the most active do go for incremental grants. I will also tell you, this is a good point to remind you that those software development companies that do participate in Azure sponsorship, we see their MBS at 7 times higher than those that don't participate in Azure sponsorship. So we've kind of started to see some of those similar numbers throughout the pilot. So we think there's a huge opportunity for you as a channel partner to really engage in this. Another deal scenario that happened a lot in the pilot was that channel partners were engaged with a customer, with the software development company, but there was no account team engagement whatsoever, which is great. It means you're selling the products that you have got a great customer relationship, that type of thing. But once you get to that kind of 35K or more of sponsorship that you want to grant to the customer, it gets a little awkward when you don't have that account team to go to and ask for approval. I think this is a place where channel partners can really lean in. We've seen success story after success story where a channel partner helped an account team close a big marketplace deal. And of course, those big marketplace deals are aligned to those account teams' compensation. So it's a really good scenario for both. So don't hesitate to build those account team relationships early. And then also, if you've already got the deal kind of at the 11th hour, don't be too concerned about going to the account team and saying, hey, I've got a deal for you. Where the account teams do get a little anxious about these kind of last minute sponsorship requests is that when they've already kind of mapped out their Azure consumed revenue plan with their customer, and here comes a major credit that kind of shifts that plan on them. So that's why we want those account teams engaged in those larger deals, so that they're going through proper planning with the customers and also properly planning kind of how their year is going to work out from a compensation perspective as well. And then finally, the other scenario that we did see a lot of, definitely as we kind of went through the pilot, because now there's this huge effort at Microsoft to move customers to MCA agreements. So we're starting to see more MCA agreements out there in the wild. And so don't get concerned if you've got a customer that's now on the MCA. We can definitely talk about getting into the pilot and taking care of those types of things. And again, on the roadmap, we fully intend to take care of this MCA issue in the near term as well. So hopefully this will be one that kind of disappears off the common deal scenario at some point. So as we start to wind down here, for those of you that are new, this just might be insightful. For those of you that are participating in the pilot, here's kind of those changes that have happened from pilot to general availability. So one, we've kind of streamlined those benefits so they really make sense to you. I know early in the pilot, it was like, hey, this doesn't make sense to a channel partner. This is really more of a software company benefit. We've really streamlined those down to make sure that they're the ones that make the most sense to you, knowing, of course, that Azure sponsorship is kind of the flagship benefit within the program. Again, I mentioned that we shifted the $10 million to $8 million tier. You should read into that it just makes it easier for many of you to get to 200K in sponsorship a little earlier in your marketplace journey with us. The change to the policy around 1 and 2 year deals requiring 3% of TCV. This is actually new to everybody in this pilot. It's not new to our software development companies. We actually implemented this some time ago with them. So a lot of those software development companies that have been selling through marketplace and using sponsorship, absolutely kind of something they're used to already, but something for channel partners to be aware of because it's net new. And then finally, a new change is throughout the pilot, we had Susan within the rewards desk doing all of the onboarding. What we're going to try to do is really kind of scale that onboarding process and really just have you continue to work with Channel Ready, and Channel Ready help to get you onboarded and to the point where you're ready to now go to the rewards desk and submit for sponsorship or execute on a benefit, that type of thing. Channel Ready's really been there working with you to get you enrolled in MPO, answer some of your deal questions, get you triaged the right spot. It just makes a lot of sense for them to also kind of step in and help you get onboarded into Marketplace Rewards. There were also a couple of changes that we made throughout the pilot that I just want to highlight that they're still here. I've mentioned the $35,000 sponsorship request several times because it is a big one. We made that one, I think, last December, so it's been in action for a while. At the start of calendar year 25, we also started to allocate your sponsorship at the seller ID level, which was something that we got a lot of feedback on from especially those of you that are selling via MPO both in the UK and the US and using multiple seller IDs. And you'll notice this week, or I should say last week, when you got your notifications from Channel Ready about your current balance, many of you got 2 notifications. Even some of you got 3 because you have a seller ID you're using for your Canadian deals as well. And so each one of those notifications showed that, hey, you've got sponsorship allocated at your seller ID level, right? So some of you are kind of on the email thread for every one of those seller IDs. So you might have gotten a, hey, congratulations, you're at the $8 million tier. You got $200,000 sponsorship. And then you probably got another email, congratulations, you're at the $50,000 tier and you've got, $10,000 of sponsorship, that type of thing. That's because you got it at the seller ID level. So I want to make sure that that's clear. Again, I think that's super important as we continue to go forward with multi-party private offers. Now we'll get into kind of the common questions that you probably have, and this has been in the slide deck for a while. But for those of you that are kind of new, I want to make sure that we go through these. So how do you know that you're in the program? If you're enrolled in multi-party private offers, you're in. You start at the MPO enrolled tier, and then you work your way up as you go. Your anniversary date. So this was a big deal when we started the pilot because we started to think about how do we execute on the anniversary date. The anniversary date is a big deal to software development companies because many of them have been entering the program all through the last 4 and 5 years at different points during the Microsoft fiscal year. Your anniversary date will all be on June 30th of 2026, right? So everybody, we kind of calculated based on your marketplace build sales as of that June 30th marker. So for everybody that's in today, your anniversary date would be then. If you're kind of not in, if you're on this call or listening on demand and you haven't enrolled in multi-party private offers yet, let's say you enroll in September, your anniversary date will then become September, right? So that's how the anniversaries will be handled going forward, which mirrors the software development company program as well. So how do you access the benefits? I've already mentioned you can send a note to channelready@microsoft.com. They'll get you hooked up with the right folks on the rewards desk. So if you're a CSP partner, if you're an authorized partner in the Microsoft Cloud Solution Provider Program and you sell CSP licensing to customers, which is a big focus for Microsoft this year, many of you have asked, hey, can I use my marketplace build sales from those transactions to grow my marketplace rewards benefits? The answer still is no on that. This program is specifically for multi-party private offer transactions today. Maybe at some point in the future, but today it's really about driving, into those enterprise accounts, marketplace deals, right? So how do you? One of our big questions when we started is, hey, how do I explain this to account teams? I think at this point, it's not. That's probably not a huge question. I think the biggest thing is just to remind account teams that, hey, I'm a partner too. I sell through Marketplace and I participate in Marketplace Rewards. Most of our account teams and all of our specialists in the field are now highly aware after another year with the program of Marketplace Rewards. Yeah, many of you ask about publicizing. Can I tell people I'm in the program? Absolutely. We even give you a press release. That's the very first benefit that we give you that's not Azure sponsorship. Big question. How do I see my marketplace performance, especially now that we actually have an anniversary date out there and we continue to be measured around that. And, if you're at that $50,000 tier trying to get to the $100,000 tier. I'm sorry, the $100,000 tier trying to get to 500K. It's important for you to be able to pull this. So the best way to do it is just go to the revenue dashboard within Marketplace Insights and look. You can just set the filter to your last 12 months. Pull down the spreadsheet and you can quickly calculate, hey, what does my marketplace build sales look like over the last 12 months, right? Because remember, we're measuring based on the trailing 12 months of MBS or marketplace build sales that you've driven. A couple other just important questions about sponsorship in particular. Seller comp, everybody, it's probably your first question you ask is, hey, if I go do one of these deals, how does that impact the account team? It does have an impact on the account team, which is why we have the $35,000 threshold there for account team approval. But over the longer term, our account teams, the numbers show that our account teams benefit as customers buy more through Marketplace. So over the long term, it's good. But again, as account teams are kind of going through their planning with their customers, it's important for them to know, hey, there's a credit coming, right? So they know how that's going to impact their customer and them. The sponsorship does not count towards MAC decrements. So some people say, hey, I've got a customer with $1 million MAC, and now I'm going to give them $100,000 in credits. Does that bring down their MAC? No, that sponsorship goes to their Azure consumption. Has really nothing to do with their MAC commitment do they have there. Many of you ask, like, hey, how do I know if my customer has the CSP or MCA? Very first thing you should do in a marketplace sales cycle, once you've got the customer to agree that, hey, they're going to buy a software development company's app, you should ask them, hey, how do you buy your Azure? This has been kind of part of the MPO training since the beginning. That'll tell you which workflow you're going to follow. So if the customer says, well, I buy, on a CSP contract, then that's a CSP path. If the customer says, hey, I buy on an enterprise agreement, you're kind of free and clear. If they say they're on an MCA, then from a sponsorship perspective that you might want to kind of get that on the radar early. You should also always run the private offer checklist. A great way to understand more about the customer's environment. How many credits do you have remaining? This is a big question that we've had. We've got some tools that we've developed for software development companies to track this. That through the pilot, we've gotten much better at tracking this for you. At any point in time, if you have this question, I know many of you have started to build, sophisticated systems on how to track your sponsorship and that type of thing in your deals. But also just anytime, contact Channel Ready at Microsoft.com. A really big one. So I mentioned one of the deal scenarios is, hey, who should submit for the sponsorship? Is it the software development company or the channel partner? Either one of those can do it, but not both of you, right? We can't give two sponsorships to the same subscription, which means you can't stack or double dip on Azure sponsorship. And I think this has been one that's a kind of a no-brainer. Most Microsoft programs are like that we don't allow you to double dip in those programs. But definitely, this is one where it can get a little fluid from time to time if both you and the software development company are moving really fast and trying to get the deal closed. We will watch out for those, and we'll see those. We'll get those flagged when we see multiple requests for the same EA, right? So we'll catch those, but just understand that early in the process. One of the big things, I'll kind of jump through here to the end. No, you can't use credits for your own subscriptions. We have had that question come up several times. But the big one is, can you use these in a proactive campaign? Absolutely. I think many of the software development companies that have really thrived with Marketplace Awards have been very aggressive with proactive use of their sponsorship. Hey, buy our quarter's ending, buy $100,000 or more of our software through the marketplace, and you're going to get $10,000 of Azure sponsorship. We see that all the time. We've actually seen a couple of really successful pilots with channel partners that have done the same thing as well. So definitely highly recommend that you think about unique ways to use sponsorship, if you will. So I know this was a quick run through of Marketplace Rewards. We're super happy to have this thing kind of out of the pilot mode and in your hands so you can feel more comfortable about it going throughout in Microsoft's entire FY26 and even beyond as we continue to learn and grow the program as well. And so with that, we'll move to the Q&A portion of this. And this being the new office hours format, we'll have to go through and kind of look through and see how these questions come in here. Justin, I know you've done one of these on the new system. Do we have any questions so far?
Yeah, we did have a few trickle in, and for those of you watching live, definitely continue to contribute your questions here. First question from the community: for Marketplace reward benefits for the tiers of sponsorships, are those applied as Azure credit or as cash incentive?
Azure credits. They're credits. That's a great question. They're credits to the customer's Azure subscription. They are not cash rewards to the channel partner or the software development company.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Next one, can you provide more details on MPO expansion? When will MPO be available outside of Canada, UK, and US?
Yeah. So no doubt that we we fully want to get multi-party private offers across the globe. And it's taken some time to do that from a tax and regulatory perspective. We are working on some new features to allow channel partners to participate in software development company transactions beyond those regions where multi-party private offer is available today. We've got a roadmap that we've started to share with some of the software companies that'll get a little more public as we go into August and September. Our goal is to have a much more robust roadmap and offering set that we'll announce at Ignite in November. So we definitely have a plan. It's definitely top of list for us to get this functionality out into more geographies across the globe. I can't give any solid timelines today, but in the classic Microsoft world, we've got our flagship events, so we will definitely have more clarity for everyone at Ignite in November, if not before that point.
Great. If both the SDC and the channel partner want to submit for sponsorship, which is better? Do SDCs get more than channel partners?
So from how much do you get, right? Like SDC versus a channel partner, there could be a scenario. Let's just say you're MPO enrolled and you're working with a software development company that sells a lot. They're probably already at the very top tier. They probably have the system down to go get the sponsorship. It might be path of least resistance to let the software development company go get the sponsorship. There are some software development companies that prefer that they do the sponsorship because they're trying to kind of build their brand with Microsoft or with the customer that they have access to these. But in reality, with the concept of incremental grants. So even if you are at the MPO enrolled tier and you're working with a huge software development company and you need $100,000 of sponsorship, you can go get $100,000 of sponsorship through incremental grant, right? So from a numbers perspective, who has more really isn't that important. It's probably comes down to how do you want to present that sponsorship to the customer. Sometimes the software development companies want to make it look to the customer like they went and got that sponsorship. Sometimes they prefer that the channel partner does it. There are many software development companies that just don't have kind of the licensing muscle or the Azure management muscle that many of our channel partners do. Many of our channel partners have entire FinOps practices, right? They know that Azure portal inside and out. It's a little easier for a channel partner to go grab that sponsorship and execute on it. But at the end of the day, there is no like absolute black and white right answer on this. It really is, and it depends situation. And it's up to the channel partner and software development company to kind of figure that out. We have started kind of the back end of the pilot, started to see some channel partners that are getting really good at the sponsorship to the point where I think during the next fiscal year for Microsoft, we'll see more channel partners that go to software development companies and say, hey, we kind of understand Azure portal better than you probably do. We're really good at sponsorship. Like they'll probably even take to the point where they'll say, we're so good at sponsorship and executing on this that you should just bring us more deals, right? So I think that's one of the things that we expect to see happen over time. But again, the answer is it depends on what's right for the situation.
Got it. Thank you. Next question. Will this deck be available? I can take that one. Yes. So on the tech community page for the event, we will have the deck available later today. Next question. Where can I find the MPO checklist?
I don't have the link handy here. We can post it in the community. But if you just go do a Bing search and search on Microsoft Marketplace Private Offer Checklist, you'll see that come up. It's in a Learn Doc, and there's a Learn Doc on it that walks you through all the results that you get and how to use it. There's also a great presentation from Darren Sharp from our Marketplace Summit where he does a little bit of a demo on that. So we can post that in the community afterwards as well. That's a great link to have handy. Yep.
Great. What should we do if the SDC wants to submit for sponsorship? Can you provide more guidance for when there is conflict between the SDC and the channel partner?
Yeah, so I think this must be a big issue that kind of, I don't want to say channel friction, but it feels like there might be some friction over here around who's doing sponsorship. Um, I think it's kind of up to the channel partner and the SDC to figure that out. I would say just like everything in the marketplace sales cycle, the earlier you get that on the table, the better, right? So don't wait until the 11th hour on your marketplace deal to figure out who's going to go submit the sponsorship. That's probably a question you should ask really early as you start to qualify with, if you're a channel partner with the software development company. So the minute you reach out to that software development company, and many of you, the minute you register your deal, right? Most of you register your deals with that software provider, and then you have a conversation about pricing and margin and who's going to get the private offer over to me. That's probably when you need to have that conversation about sponsorship as well, if sponsorship's required. You don't need sponsorship to close every marketplace deal, but when you do need it, or you feel like it's coming, get that early in that conversation with the software development company.
Got it. Okay. When will there be sponsorship for CSP deals?
I will just tell you that's not on the roadmap right now. There's, MCA is probably the biggest focus for us right now, getting through the MCA pilot and getting that to a scalable, easy way to get those into your hands and customer hands. I don't have an answer on the CSP piece. I would say right now, again, our focus is on MCA, and then once that's over, maybe we'll have a roadmap for CSP.
Got it. Okay, next one. How do SDCs and channel partners know if the customer has an MCA or a CSP contract?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned that earlier. When you qualify a marketplace deal, like one of the, again, first question you should ask once you've qualified that, hey, they're going to buy this software development company's product, you should ask, how do you buy your Azure today, right? Do you buy direct from Microsoft on an EA or an MCA? Then hey, it's one of those two. Or do you buy it from an authorized partner in the cloud solution provider program? Then it's a CSP deal. Most of your customers, as you qualify, will know if they're on an MCA. All of our account teams absolutely know that. So if you get to the point where it's going to be over 35K and you're already engaging the account team, super important question to ask them and say, is this going to be an MCA? I think that's, early on in the deal cycle, you need to know that. I do think that over time that MCA versus EA question will go away once we're through the pilot on the MCA for the sponsorship for MCA customers.
Got it.
Which is coming soon. That's not a long process to get to that. So, yep.
Cool. Next one. What happens when the account team declines a sponsorship request? Who owns the message to the customer?
Oh, that's a really good question. So the reason why an account team, again, might decline a request is because they've already have a plan in place with the customer around consumption, right? So the earlier, if you've got a deal that size, the earlier you're engaged with that account team, the better, right? So don't wait till the 11th hour. Really, that is kind of a message that the account team needs to deliver back to the customer, hopefully with the channel partner in hand or with the software company in hand or all three of you. In some cases, account teams may deliver that message to the customer, hey, this is an opportunity for you to consume more, spend more, get a larger Mac. They can spin it in a really positive way. In some cases, there might be a greater plan in play that really puts that on pause. But I think that message, if the customer already is expecting it, it's kind of a joint, at least two-way or three-way conversation back to the customer on what's happening with that. And I've seen a couple of those scenarios where the account teams have really leaned in and delivered a really strong message to the customer about when's the right time to use sponsorship or not. So I think that's the important part. And if you've got a deal that is large enough to require 35K in sponsorship, you should have that on the account team's radar, not just because they're going to need to approve it, but it's like I said earlier, we've got story after story where there was a partner who wasn't really engaged with Microsoft, but they were excellent at selling some other software company's products, and they entirely changed their whole Microsoft relationship just through a marketplace deal. So I think if you're a channel partner and you're concerned about that, I would turn that into a positive experience as quickly as possible. We've seen lots of channel partners doing road shows about their ability to go sell marketplace deals and lunch and learns and really grow in their relationship with account teams. So I think it's a good kind of mechanism to get a conversation with an account team that you may not have had in the past as well.
Great. Next question. How do we calculate our own MBS for trailing 12 months?
Yeah. So I mentioned that earlier, the revenue dashboard, Marketplace Insights. If you haven't really started to use the dashboards within Marketplace Insights, that might be one of your big go-dos from today, is to really understand the orders dashboard and the revenue dashboard. Most of you will go to the revenue dashboard and you will export to Excel right off the bat. And then you should go read through the Learn document. The columns, there's so many columns and they are a little bit confusing, but there's a Learn document on the revenue dashboard, and export to Excel and really understand kind of what goes on in your revenue dashboard. I can give you like some scenarios where it's super important. Like even within this process where we send out the emails with your updated amounts of sponsorship, there was a partner that had just closed a $6 million Azure deal, and it should have pushed them over to the $8 million tier. But in our numbers, we didn't see that yet because in their deal with the customer, they had set that deal to start on July 3rd. So our reporting for June didn't catch that. In their revenue dashboard, they were able to go in there and see, oh, geez, we started this for June or July the 3rd. So it'll pop up in August, and in August, they'll move to the $8 million tier, right? So that's a really good example of understanding that revenue report. Also, many of you have questions, especially with EA and MCA and how we do the collections and how we do the payouts. When you start to have questions about payouts and collections, that revenue dashboard and those columns in there, unprocessed, uncollected, those types of things are super important for you to understand. I will tell you, if you've got some challenges with your dashboard, both Jesse and Joel behind the Channel Ready alias do a really nice job of jumping in and kind of doing a hands-on demo of your Marketplace Insights dashboard. It's primarily going to be the revenue report. But I think that's the most important place where you can go is look at that revenue report, specifically for trailing 12 months. Just go set the filter for the last 12 months and look at your revenue.
Got it. Okay, so we did put a link on the screen for those of you watching. The link to get the what Jason was talking about just now, aka.ms/marketplace insights is a link that you would want to access for that dashboard. And then previously, we also talked about the MPO checklist. The link for that is just aka.ms/MPO checklist. So feel free to access both of those links for the resources. Next question. Some SDCs use Azure sponsorship to buy down the agency fee. Can channel partners also do this?
No. The agency fee is really between Microsoft and the publisher. So in the case of MPO, the publisher is a software company. That's not that agency fee. We don't recommend that gets passed to the customer. I know it happens in many different ways. There is within the software development company side of the Marketplace Rewards program, there is an allocation of Azure sponsorship that software development companies get that can go towards their own Azure tenant. So if they build a SaaS app, runs in their own Azure tenant, there are situations where they use their Azure sponsorship on their own tenant. For channel partners, it is always sponsorship for the customer tenant. So really, agency fees should not be part of the conversation with a channel partner and the customer, or really a software company, channel partner, or the customer as well. And use of those sponsorship credits are to help you win marketplace deals. So with the customer. So again, I would avoid the whole agency fee conversation. Agency fees exist in different names in every cloud hyperscaler marketplace. You know, the Microsoft ones, we have, you know, a standard 3% fee and then 50% for renewals, and then software development companies can get lower fees based on their performance with Microsoft. So it's a pretty, Microsoft feels like we've got a pretty aggressive policy and stance on our agency fees, but they should not become a part of your marketplace deals.
Great. Okay. Lots of great questions coming in today. Thank you all. I think we've addressed all the questions that came in. So I know we're creeping up on time here. Let's round this out. Joel, Jesse, do y'all have any final thoughts to kind of close out on the content today?
Yeah. One thing I'd say is that if you have questions, just reach out to Channel Ready. We are here to help you.
No, I think it was really great content. And again, just
okay, I think there was an audio issue there, but Joel was just saying to reach out to the Channel Ready alias, I believe.
Perfect.
Okay, got it.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then Jason, any other thoughts or comments from you?
You know, same thing. Any questions? Definitely let us know. But welcome to Microsoft's FY26. We're so glad that this is now out of the pilot mode, and channel partners can go use it to close more marketplace deals. And looking forward to a great year with you.
Great, thank you. And I would just add one more note to close this out. Anybody watching asynchronously, definitely feel free to just ask your questions directly in the marketplace community, and join the community if you're not a member already. So looking forward to seeing you there. And we don't have the next office hours scheduled yet for marketplace, but stay tuned, join the community. This is going to be a monthly offering, so you will find out when that next one is available. Thanks everybody for joining. And to get to the marketplace community, you can visit aka.ms/community/marketplace. So thanks again for joining, and have a great day. Thank you all.
Thank you.